So now that we know our way around Dimension, let's start using the interface. We're going to begin by bringing out a basic shape onto our stage. So we'll go over here underneath our starter assets and click and drag a cube onto the stage. Now that we have an object on the stage, let's review our 1, 2, and 3 keys. If I hit 1, that brings up my orbit tool, and now I can move all the way around my cube. I can also look underneath or on top. By bringing up my pan tool with the number 2, I can move to the right and add additional objects over here. I can move to the left, add additional objects, or I can bring the cube down on the plane and add objects on top. But because the cube is a little too close, I can use my number 3 key, the dolly key, to zoom out and give myself a little more room to work. The more comfortable you get with these 3 keys, the faster you'll be in Dimension. So you'll definitely want to practice. The next 4 keys we're going to talk about actually change the dimensions of the cube or whatever other object you drag onto the stage. They are R, S, E, and V. We're going to start with R. R is the rotate tool. So if I click on my object and click the letter R, I get this little globe thing here. If you notice, it has 3 different colors, red, green, and blue. Each one of those colors denote an axis, either the x-axis, the y-axis, or the z-axis. And this determines which way the object will rotate. My students like to call these hula hoops. So when you have the hula hoops, that's how you can rotate your object. Just grab the hula hoop and spin it in the direction you want it to go. Keep in mind when you're not working on the y-axis that the x and the z-axis will actually throw your object underneath the plane if you're not careful. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that, especially if you're creating an object that you're going to use for 3D printing. The next key you'll end up using a lot, and that's the S key. S stands for scale. So if we click on our object and hit the S key, we get a different widget. Each one of these little square handlebars will change the object in that direction. So if I want to make this object taller, I'll grab the square at the top and just drag it up. If I want to make the object wider, I'll grab either the blue handle or the red handle, depending on which way I want to extend the size. You can use the little handlebars in the middle to pull up 2 axes at once. So if you want to make it taller and wider at the same time, you can use it for that, or maybe you want to make it shorter and fatter. The little white button in the middle is really helpful. If you see the prompt next to it, it says move a line to surface. This allows you to immediately snap your object onto the plane, so that way if you're creating in 3D, you know that you don't have something hovering or something breaking the plane and going into the space below. Our next key is E, and that brings up another widget. This is our move tool, and it allows us to move our object precisely on the plane wherever we would like. Again, just grab the little handlebars on the end and drag it in the direction that you'd like it to go. You can move it on the x-axis or the z-axis, and if you want the object to hover, you can pull it up on the y-axis. This is really good if you're creating something for a video game or augmented reality where you want it to look like it's hovering. Again, the little white button will align it back down to the surface. So if it's hovering and you want to bring it back down to the surface, all you have to do is click the white button and it will snap right back down onto the plane. Just like our scale tool, you can move it in 2 directions at once by grabbing the handlebars in the corners. So before we move on to our last tool, let's quickly review. The R key rotates our object. Remember, just grab the hula hoops and drag it in the direction you want to go. The S key is our scale key. Grab the squares at the end to drag your object to whatever size you want it to be. The E key is our move key. Grab the arrow and drag it in the direction that you want to go. You should get really comfortable with those 3 tools before you move on to the final tool. The V key combines all of the widgets into one tool. This can get a little bit confusing, but if you look closely, you can see that we have our hula hoops, we have our squares, And we have our arrows. So our hula hoops are going to rotate. Our squares are going to scale. And our arrows are going to move. When you get really comfortable in Dimension, this is really the only tool that you'll have to use. And remember, we can always use the white button to align it back to the plane. So that's it. Now you know everything you need to know about moving things around in Dimension. Remember, 1, 2, and 3 are your move tools, and R, S, E, and V are your manipulation tools. Pause here and get really comfortable with those keys before we move forward. When you feel comfortable enough to move on to the next lesson, we'll start talking about all the cool things that we can do with these shapes.